Okay. Get to continue this game after not playing it for like, what? 1.5 years? I played this back in September of 2020. Okay. So we're gonna, what, continue? No. New game. We already played Trial, or we already played Justice for All, so we want to play Trials and Tribulations, I think. So, let's play this one. Yes. Huff, huff. Ag, how did I get into this mess? Why? Why did I do that? That girl, you shouldn't see her anymore. Hey, it's none of your business. I'm telling you for your sake. If you continue to see her, it's going to be bad news. You're lying. Just listen to me. There's something you need to know about that girl. Stop it. Don't talk to her like that. About her like that. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Isn't that his friend? "5 years earlier, Mia Fey, second trial." Ooh, it's finally time. I'm kind of nervous. Ahem. Oh, Mr. Grossberg. Good morning. This is kind of loud. I think I could turn it down a little bit. Hold on. You can go down to like 32. There we go. Ah, Mia, please calm yourself down. You're going to get yourself arrested for suspicious behavior, you know. What are you talking about? I'm relaxed, Mr. Grossberg. Look at me, I'm relaxed. Let go of my lapels. You've obviously haven't got the temperament to be a lawyer. I'm so sorry. It's just that I'm so nervous today. Oh, that's right. This is your first time in the big leagues, isn't it? Well, never you fear, my dear. I, Marvin Grossberg, am at your service. I don't remember what was up with this guy. I think he was like hiding. He was like being blackmailed by that Von Karma guy that we got sent to prison at the end of the first game. And then his daughter appears in the second game and wants like revenge, but ends up getting like shot or something. I don't know. It's really weird. I remember the last thing that happened was that I lost the trial. Because my defendant was actually guilty. Actually, this is but this is like before everything, so I don't know what this part's for. Actually, this is my second time in court. Still, you surprised me, with your earnest request last night. Let me handle this case, you suddenly said, and quite forcefully too. I just found out yesterday about the case, I mean. What? And you've already learned all the relevant facts? Well, about that, you see, I mean... Of course I have, I think. Oh dear. In any case, don't let our client see you're so nervous. You see the poor young man in the pink sweater over there? That's our client. Oh no, he has COVID. No. Cough, sniffle. Good morning there, everybody. Good morning. Try to keep smiling, Mia. I just want to say, I'll give it all I've got. Yup, it'll be fine, no prob. Cough, achoo, achoo. Oh, what's wrong? Do you have a cold or something, Mr. Rye? Why are you calling him... What's with the, like, nickname, Mr. Rye? Actually, it's Wright. Like, the Flying Brothers. People screwed up all the time. And yes, I have a cold. That's what this mask is for. My doc says this way I won't give it to anyone else. Be kind to others, he says. Right, Mr. Wright, you have nothing to fear in court today. If you are truly innocent, I promise I will save you. Please, let go of my shirt. Cough. That's right. He's the one on trial, not you. He's the one who should be nervous. You need to stay strong for your client, Mia. My name is Mia Fey. I'm still pretty new at this lawyer thing. The first time I appeared in court was a year ago. But that trial traumatized me so badly I thought I'd never set foot in another courtroom. What happened? I don't remember. It's been, or I don't know if they even tell us, but like, if they did, I don't remember. Also, like, I don't need this disconnected controller. Can I hide this? No, that's not it. I want this. Where is that? There we go. Like, that doesn't need to be up on the video. Especially because it's over the window. It's been 1 year since then, and well, here I am again. But this time I'm going to win. For my client, and for myself. April 11th, 10 a.m., District Court, Courtroom number 2. Court is now in session for the trial of Phoenix Wright. The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. The defense today is Miss Mia Fey, was it? Yes, Your Honor. Is there a problem? I was under the impression that Marvin Grossberg was to be leading the defense. Yes, well, you see, Mr. Grossberg had a bit of an emergency. Emergency? But isn't that him standing Sitting there right next to you? Yes, well... You're just a rookie. Are you sure you can really handle this? Don't let him scare you, Mia. Give him your toughest look. Of course, Your Honor. I think. That doesn't sound very reassuring. Well, Mr. Payne, your opening statement, please? Well, well, well. I can't believe a veteran like me has to spend his time babysitting a new defense lawyer. Don't worry, little girl. It will all be over soon. What was that all about? Was he trying to trash talk me? Now then, I'd like to proceed with a summary of events on the day in question. The incident occurred on the campus of Ivy University. The murder victim was a student named Doug Swallow. He was a fourth-year student studying pharmacology. Sounds like he was a very bright young man. Yes, well, next we have a photo taken at the scene of the crime. Students discovered the scene shortly after the murder. They found the victim's body. And the defendant, who had obviously bungled his getaway. They then called the police. That certainly makes the defendant look very suspicious indeed. Very well. The court accepts this photo into the record as evidence. By the way, can't quite tell the cause of death from this photo. He. Your reputation for... What are with these words? Sagacity? I don't know what that means. Is well earned, Your Honor. The truth is that this victim died a rather unusual death. A heart attack. So he was murdered. An unusual death? What do you mean, Mr. Payne? Well, perhaps the defense would like to take this question. Huh? Simple question. I thought I might loosen you up a bit. It was a fatal electric shock. But how? What caused the fatal electric shock? The broken wire. How did the wire break? Did someone cut it? Did it snap for some reason? Profiles. We have this person who we don't know who is yet, but I mean, they're here. So let's read about this. Phoenix Wright's girlfriend dated the victim. Okay. I have everything I need to know then. I am a gentleman, if you will. A what? Stand up to him, Mia. Show him what you're made of. Ah, a perfect opportunity. Well, what was it? The cause. Go on. Please say you know at least this much. Yeah, I've looked at the court record. Well, the autopsy report. Like, Mia, just look at the autopsy report. But I'm so sorry, I didn't get a chance to read through the whole file. Groan. My hemorrhoids are beginning to act up. Now, see here. The details of the case are filed under the court record. But you knew that already, didn't you? Yeah. Ah, the court record. I think I can see that by pressing tab. All the weapons we need can be found in the court record. Take a good hard look at the data there, and think carefully before you answer. Dear. Yes, sir, I'll do just that. I got to stay calm. Can't let that prosecutor get the better of me. The court record, okay, let's take a look. I just pressed tab here. Now then, would the attorney for the defense please answer the question? What was the cause of death? Electrocution. According to the court record, it was a fatal electric shock. In other words, electrocution. Electrocution? But how could such a thing happen? Did the murderer use some sort of... some type of new super powerful stun gun, perhaps? The answer to that will become crystal clear as this trial proceeds, Your Honor. Like, if you just looked at the photo of the hanging electrical cord, and you don't know what caused the electrical shock? But before that, there is one more vital issue. What's that? Why, motive, of course. Ah, this is where the girlfriend comes in. Apparently, there was some bad blood between the victim and the defendant. Bad blood? What do you mean? Oopsie, I'm terribly sorry. You're the defense attorney, so you must know all about it. I shouldn't be stealing your spotlight like this. I really don't like this guy's smug attitude. That's Winston Payne for you. He is one smooth operator, if you catch my drift. They don't call him the rookie killer for nothing, you know. Now then, let's hear from the defense. What was the source of bad blood of the... What was the source of bad blood between the victim and the defendant? And this time, I would like to see some supporting evidence. Evidence? Ah, no need to get all worked up over this. As I said, all our weapons can be found in the court record. Find the evidence you need and then shove it into old Greybeard's face. Yes, sir, into old Greybeard's face. Mr. Grossberg. Try to set a better example for the young lady. Yeah, evidence isn't the only thing in the court record. People's profiles are as well. You can toggle between profiles and evidence or tasks, and there you go over it all. Yeah, I know. Now then, let's see what you've got. What was the cause of bad blood between Phoenix Wright and the victim? His girlfriend. The reason for the bad blood between the two of them was this woman here. Dahlia Hawthorne, is it? Very good, Miss Fay. You seem to have picked up on at least this much. This woman is the girlfriend of the defendant, Phoenix Wright. But up until about 8 months ago, she was with the victim, Mr. Swallow. Clearly she has some part to play in the story. He's done it again. Before the cross-examination starts, he's already got the judge thinking like he wants. Very well, Mr. Payne. Please call your first witness. If it pleases the court, the prosecution would like to call Mr. Phoenix Wright. What? The defendant himself? Well, Miss Fay? Also I want to see. Which one of these is the oldest? That looks the oldest, so we're gonna save... Yeah. Yes. Hold on, I gotta go do something. Okay, back to the game. It's fine. After all, Mr. Wright is innocent, right? The defense has no objection. Very well. The court calls Mr. Phoenix Wright to the witness stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Phoenix Wright. My job is, well, right now I guess I'm a suspect. No, he means, what did you do before you were arrested? Oh, achoo. I was a university student. Mr. Wright, you understand that you are suspected in the death of... But, I didn't do it. I'm innocent, I tell you. I'm telling you I was... Achoo, cough, achoo. Would the defendant please refrain from passing on his cold to the rest of us? Seems the witness has something he wants to say. Well then, Mr. Wright, please tell us about your relation to the victim. Right away, Your Honor. I admit I was there. But I'm not a killer. All I did was find his body. I hardly knew the guy to begin with. I never even talked to that stuck-up British wannabe. I see. You hardly knew the victim? Let's see. We did go to the same university. They have a relationship because of this girl specifically. That's all I really know. I see. So you hardly knew the victim? Right. Like I said, I'm not a killer. Ooh, it looks like the judge understands. You're being naive, you know. Too naive. Huh? Hee 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 hee. Seems that you've forgotten one small thing, young lady. And that would be? This witness still has to undergo something called cross-examination. Cross-examination? He's right, and it's the defense's duty to carry out the cross-examination. The purpose is to determine if a witness' testimony contains any contradictions. Contradictions? If a witness is lying, their statements will conflict with the court record. But Mr. Wright is my client. Even if he is your client in court, all lies must be struck down. As a lawyer, that is your duty, you see. What does he mean by that? Is he saying that testimony just now? That there was a lie? A contradiction? Now then, your cross-examination, if you please, Miss Fay. Please, Mr. Wright, tell me you haven't been lying. You wouldn't do that to me, would you? Now we're going to save again. Let's press him. It's one of the classic things. When you say there, you mean the place where the victim was murdered? Yeah, sort of. The place where something happened, anyway. Something? You can't hide what happened. We have photographic evidence. Achoo, achoo, achoo. Anyway, Mr. Wright. If that were you... What were you doing at the scene of the crime? I thought you said you didn't know the victim, Mr. Swallow. It was just a coincidence. We bumped into each other by accident. A coincidence, huh? We bumped into each other, but like, that sounds like he was still alive when you found him. Sounds kinda weird to me. You say you found the body? So who called the police? Huh? Achoo. Cough. Achoo. Unfortunately, it was some other students that notified the police. Other students? That's correct. They were witnesses. Witnesses who saw the defendant standing there next to the body in shock. What? Is this true, Mr. Wright? Achoo, achoo, achoo. Could you stop sneezing every time you're in a bind? Well, it's true that I was pretty shocked when I found the body, but I... So you didn't know his face, or even his name, right? Right, well, no. That is, I mean... So, which is it? Do you know him or not? Now, see here, you can't avoid answering the question by sneezing all day. Well, I guess I did know his name. News to me, why didn't he tell me that before? I heard he used to date Dolly. Who is this Dolly person? Ah, yes, that would be the defendant's lover, Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. Oh, I see. Ah, young love. So sweet. But that's all I knew about him. How do you know he was British? Mr. Wright, you stated the following in your testimony. I hardly knew the guy to begin with. But that's right. I mean, why would I even... But that doesn't sound right. You hardly knew him. Then why would you say the victim was a stuck-up British wannabe? Achoo. Well, Mr. Wright? Ah, no, it wasn't me. I'm not a killer, I swear. Mr. Wright, I will give you an opportunity to revise your testimony. How is it that you knew the victim was, as you put it, a British wannabe? Yes, well... He was always walking around with a huge Union Jack on the back of his shirt. Let's save again, because we made progress. And I like saving. Does that seem right? I mean, I can't see anything. On his shirt here. Let's see. Let's press him on this one. Did you see it at the crime scene? The Union Jack, I mean? Yes, that's right. I saw it at the crime scene. That's why I figured he must love British stuff, see? It's true, cross my heart. I swear I didn't do it. He's acting fishier than the salmon I ate last night. May I ask you something, Miss Faye? Yes, Your Honor? What is it now? Who is this person, anyway? This Union Jack fellow. The Union Jack is the name of the United Kingdom's flag. Oh, I see. So you mean, like, the stars and stripes, right? As usual, Your Honor, your insight astounds me. Hey, something has just occurred to me. Isn't there something strange about this bit just now? Mia, there's a contradiction here. You don't need to tell me. I already looked at the picture and saw there was no Union Jack there. Mr. Grossford, quickly now, show that boy. You mean business, with evidence, I mean. Okay, Mia, check the court record carefully. Well, dear, do you think you can manage on your own from this point? I can handle it myself. But first, I'm gonna say... One year ago, I was in a courtroom just like this. I can do it. I can handle this myself. You mustn't try to bite off more than you can chew, Mia. It'll be fine. I know what I have to do. Remember, you can always press him to get more information. Oh, and one more thing. When you're going to state a contradiction, make sure you present some definitive proof. Okay, Mia. One more time, from the very beginning of the testimony. He was definitely there. He's not the killer. Because, well, he's not in prison in later games, so obviously he was not the killer. I hardly knew the guy, which was a lie. We are going to present this. Are you certain you saw the Union Jack? Yeah, I'm sure. It was right there on his back. Miss Faye, Is there some point to this line of questioning? Your Honor, please take another look at the crime scene photo. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing on the victim's back. Hey, wait a minute! He's wearing a leather jacket! The Union Jack was on the back of the t-shirt he was wearing. How did you know that? Did you take off his jacket? I was under the impression that you accidentally came across the body. But if that was really the case, then you wouldn't know that, would you? You'd have no idea at all what he was wearing underneath the jacket. Mr. Wright, you've been lying to me. Please forgive me. Mia, you've made our client cry. Let him... That P on his chest doesn't stand for Phoenix anyway. Can't believe I trusted him. Mr. Wright was all wrong. Hee hee hee. That was an impressive bit of cross-examination. Thank you for uncovering the defendant's lies for me. It's quite clear that this man did not simply stumble upon the scene of the crime. Uh-oh. Did I go too far? By the way, Mr. Wright, you seem to have a rather bad cold. Have you taken any medicine for it? Yeah, I took some, but... What was the medicine that you took? An over-the-counter brand? Called Cold Killer X? Where is this going? Yeah, that's right. It kills colds good. Hey, wait a second. How did you know I'm a big fan of Cold Killer X? Hee hee hee. Would you happen to have that medicine with you right now? Well, actually, I seem to have lost it somewhere. He lost it? Does this even have anything to do with the case? Mr. Wright, shall I tell you where your cold medicine is right now? Huh? Your Honor, I'd like you to take a look at another photo from the crime scene. What's this? In the victim's hand, it's Cold Killer X. Knowing this game, it's like it fell out of his pocket. It landed perfectly in his hand. It's gonna be something ridiculous like that. I don't know how we're gonna prove that. Yes, but even if I've got a bottle of Cold Killer X in my apartment... I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that argument won't work. Why not? There is no doubt as to who this bottle of Cold Killer X belongs to, because it has fingerprints. Especially since Mr. Wright's fingerprints are all over it. Oh no. This doesn't look good. Sensing his murderous intent, Mr. Swallow must have picked up the bottle of medicine for no apparent reason. Dropped by Mr. Wright and hid it in his hand. His purpose in doing so can only have been to identify his killer as Phoenix Wright. Makes no sense at all, but okay. Order in the court. Your Honor, I'd like to present this photo and bottle as evidence. Very well. The court will accept them into the record. Crime photo 2 added to the court record. Cold Killer X added to the court record. Also, the victim's wristwatch was broken. Broken? Yes, it ceased functioning when a large wave of electricity passed through it. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have some kind of explanation for all this? This is really bad. Oh, my buttocks, my poor hemorrhoids. Okay, we got the real testimony. The truth is, I went because he called me. He was in the pharmacy department, so we agreed to meet at 2:45 behind that building. Sounds super suspicious. But I think he is in the pharmacology department. He's a fourth-year pharmacology student. So that checks out. And 2:45, let's look at what that is in relation to the death. It's 15 minutes before the cause of death. What is that? Is that... That's 12 o'clock, so it's... 3... And then like a little bit after 3? I don't think that's gonna be important, but like... Found clutched in the victim's hand, covered in Wright's fingerprints. That doesn't seem very helpful to me right now. He was in the pharmacology department, so we agreed to meet at 2:45 behind that building. Super shady. But it definitely did happen. We talked for a bit, and then at around 3, we split up. But 3 was the time of death. But also the watch says, like, otherwise. It wasn't exactly 3. Because, I mean, how accurate is an autopsy report gonna be? We split up. Then later, when I went back, I found him lying there. Why did you go back? What happened? And also, why did he still have Cold Killer X? I'd been taking Cold Killer X for the last 2 or 3 days, but I lost my bottle of it around lunchtime on the day of the accident. Oh, so he came to bring it to you? Mr. Wright, that's completely different from the testimony you gave previously. Achoo, achoo, achoo. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was afraid you wouldn't believe the truth. You'll forgive me if I say I hardly find your current testimony any more credible. Miss Fay, please begin with your cross-examination. Oh, please, Mr. Wright, don't tell any more lies. Why did he call you? Had you ever met the victim before then? No, never. But that day he called me up and told me that he wanted to talk about Dolly. Oh. And this Dolly person is... It's kind of embarrassing. She's, sweetheart. She's my sweetheart. What was that for, Mia? Oh. I'm so sorry, I just felt like slapping someone. All of a sudden. Dahlia Hawthorne was also the lover of the murder victim, Doug Swallow. Before she met Mr. Wright, that is. So it was one of those nasty love triangles, I see. Was it Mr. Swallow who indicated you should meet at 2:45? Yeah. And we were both there right on time. You said the victim was in the pharmacology department, correct? Yeah, he was studying how to manufacture and improve pharmaceuticals. Everyone called him the alchemist of IBU. An alchemist? I see. I gotta admit, it was a little suspicious that he had a whole laboratory and everything. It was filled with chemicals and strange machines that run on high-voltage electricity. That sounds important, because he was electrocuted. Oh hey, Window Viper. I'm continuing this game, but with the third one this time, since I finished the other two games. How are you today? Oh ho, how fascinating. He sounds like he was quite an ambitious young man. That's good to hear. What do I do? Maybe I should ask him some more details. Let's see. I don't know if this is really important. So I'm just gonna ask about the timing of the meeting. Are you absolutely certain that you met at 2:45? Yeah, pretty sure. That's the time class ends. But they're always doing experiments, so it doesn't matter much. Experiments? Yeah, those pharmacology guys are always in the lab whipping up something. Well, it looks like he's right about the time anyway. Witness, let's go on with your testimony. No, I wanted to ask him about the other one. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the pharmacology department. Well, okay, sure. I don't know all that much, though. A little bit earlier in your testimony, you said something interesting. You said the department uses strange machines that run on high-voltage electricity. That's right. And they sure look dangerous. They use non-standard voltage, so there are high-voltage cables everywhere. High-voltage cables. Yeah, there were electrical poles set up all around the building. The high-voltage cables run off overhead around the roof. That's pretty obvious that one of them broke. But how did it break? Finally, I think we're getting somewhere. We talked for a bit, and then at around 3 we split up. Let's press him about this. So, what was it you were talking about? You know, that Shukoff, that maybe we should hang out again sometime. I don't think that's what they were talking about. Hang out again sometime? I wish that were true. Then later, when I went back, I found him lying there. So you say you went back. Why did you go back? Yeah, that's when I found the body. Yes, but why did you go back in the first place? Weren't you angry with him? Well, that's right, I was. Then why, Mr. Wright? Why did you go back there? I thought maybe we could make up. Achoo, achoo. Judging by the atmosphere, I'm pretty sure no one is buying this. It's rather unusual to catch a cold in this time of year, isn't it? Yeah, I've always get a little careless when the weather starts to warm up. Guess I shouldn't sleep with the window open this early in spring, huh? Suppose common sense is not always common. So, did anyone else know that you were taking cold medicine? Well, I always took one after meals. I'm pretty sure all my friends knew about it. On the day of the incident, what did you do for lunch? Huh? What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, exactly. You can never be too sure. I always eat with Dolly, just the two of us. Dolly's homemade lunches are just the greatest. Her mini omelets are magically delicious. Youch! Why did you punch me in the jaw? Oh, I'm so sorry. I just felt like hurting someone all of a sudden. Think that's enough for now. For the defendant and the victim at approximately the time of his death. Then the defendant returned to the scene for some unknown reason. I'm not entirely convinced by his explanation about the medicine bottle earlier. Let me be frank here, Mr. Wright. Your testimony cannot be trusted. What do you mean? He. I knew it was too much work for a little girl. However, there is one mystery that still remains. There is, Your Honor? Also, I want to save here. Because the music changed. How the murder was carried out, of course. That is a big question. Just how was the victim electrocuted? I don't believe the murder weapon has been produced yet, correct? Well, that is, You are correct, Your Honor. What are you so smug about? That doesn't sound very, like, supporting of your case. So how exactly was Mr. Swallow killed? Just look at the photo. It's pretty obvious. I could somehow establish how it was done, which you can. Maybe I could still come out of this mess smelling like a rose. Establish murder method. Your Honor. Yes, Miss Faye? I believe that if we were to piece together everything we've heard up until now, you should be able to solve the mystery of how Mr. Swallow died. That would be most impressive. He. Quite the brash statement coming from a rookie. But even a beginner like you must understand the basic rules of the court, yes? An attorney must be able to substantiate their arguments with evidence. Of course I know that. Actually, I'd totally forgotten about that. Now then, Miss Faye, let me see what you've got. Show me how you believe the victim was electrocuted. This electrical wire. As for the cause of death, I'd say this picture captures it quite well. What? But there's nothing that even remotely resembles a murder weapon here. I'm afraid the defense is going to have to explain this in a bit more detail. Miss Faye, where exactly in this photo is the murder weapon? Right here. Well, naturally, it's right here. That's... What is that? A severed electrical cable, I believe, Your Honor. Remember the testimony we've heard. The machines the pharmacologist students used in their experiments require high voltage. And because of that, there are special high voltage cables strung up everywhere. So then, the high voltage cable. Yes, the high voltage cable is the cause of death. That is the most likely explanation. That certainly sounds plausible. Well, Mr. Payne, what do you have to say about this? Well, I believe some praise is in order. Don't toy with me, old man. Now, the victim's cause of death may indeed have been a high-voltage cable. However, I want you to think about what that really implies. The only one who had the opportunity to use the cable as a murder weapon was the defendant. How? Like, how does that make any sense? Achoo! That much is certainly true. Yes, and that's not all. We have proof. Irrefutable proof that will establish that Mr. Wright was the murderer. I have a feeling it's not actually irrefutable proof. You do? Well, what is it? His fingerprints. His fingerprints? You mean that the defendant's fingerprints were on something besides the medicine bottle? Let's take another look at the crime scene photo. As you can see, the victim is wearing a leather jacket. As you may know, leather holds fingerprints quite well. Ah, you mean... Yes, it was quite clearly imprinted on the chest area of the victim's jacket. A palm print of the defendant's very own hand. But what does that actually... What does that mean? What? He touched the victim? I can only think of one way Mr. Wright could have left a print like that. He touched the victim somehow. Intent on murder! He squarely pushed the victims toward the severed electrical cable. Because there's just one lying around. Order, that's enough. I think we can conclude that there is no reason to continue with this cross-examination. Stick a fork in us, we're done. Mr. Grossberg, my hemorrhoids never lie. The show is over, Mia. I knew that boy was guilty in the first time I saw him. No, you're wrong. Mr. Wright is innocent. No further evidence is required to convince me of this man's guilt. Your Honor, this time I am prepared to render a verdict in this case. Do you have something further to add, Miss Faye? Is this what you want, Mr. Wright? You still haven't told us the truth, the whole truth. If you don't say something now, the judge is going to hand down his verdict. But I can't. I just can't say it. If I told you what really happened, then I'd be... It's okay, Mr. Wright. I'm your attorney. You can trust me. Miss Faye, no matter what it is you have to say, I believe in you, and I'll represent you to the very end. We've already established the defendant's guilt. There's no further need for him to say anything. Cough, cough. Wait a minute. Mr. Wright, I'll tell you what really happened. But I've already told you, Mr. Wright, there's no need for further... cough. I did it. I admit it. I pushed him. It's my fault. My fault that Doug Swallow is dead. That girl. You shouldn't see her at any time. Hey, it's none of your business. I'm telling you for your sake, if you continue to see her, it's going to be bad news. You're lying. Just listen to me. There's something you need to know about that girl. Stop it. Don't talk about her like that. What you just said? Was that the truth? Yes, I was afraid that if I told the truth, everyone would think I was the murderer for sure. Well, as things currently stand, we're all absolutely convinced you are. Please give me one more chance to explain. This time, I swear I'll tell the whole truth. It'll be okay, won't it, Miss Faye? I believe in you. Oh, thank you. Still can't believe it. You really did push the victim. It feels like my hemorrhoids are doing the Harlem Shake. That guy. He was talking about about Dolly. I lost my temper and gave him a shove. At that moment, I heard some kind of loud noise. A little while after I left, I started to get worried. So I went back, but he was just lying there, dead. Well, the explanation is really quite simple. When you pushed him, Mr. Swallow flew back and touched the electrical cable. He died from the shock, that is, as they say. Is that. But, if you actually look at the time on his watch... where is his watch? This photo. It does not say 3 o'clock, like the autopsy report says. It says, like, a few minutes after 3 o'clock. I don't know if that matters. It might. He died from the shock, and then... what if I read that? A simple explanation indeed. At the time of the incident, a light rain had been falling. But from the rain, the victim was more easily electrocuted. But when I pushed him, there weren't any electrical cables nearby. If there had been something like that, even I would have noticed it. That's true. Even a doofus like him couldn't miss that. Miss Faye. Let me warn you right now that if your cross-examination doesn't yield any new facts, I intend to deliver my verdict without further delay. Are we clear on that? Yes, Your Honor. Don't give up, Mia. If he is innocent, there must be some kind of evidence somewhere that will prove it. Okay, this one might be a bit hard. That guy, he was talking bad about Dolly. Okay, let's question about. So what kinds of things did Mr. Swallow say to you? Said all sorts of terrible things about Dolly. Said that she was a bad girl. Is that all? Yep. Well, Miss Faye, you heard him yourself. Oh boy, you're not doing yourself any favors here, Mr. Wright. Please don't make this harder for me than it already is. Anyway, after he said that, I just... Can you tell me about what happened in a little more detail? That guy, he just said what he wanted to say to me. And then he put the jacket he was holding... And then he put on the jacket he was holding and started to leave. That's when I lost my temper and flew into a furious frenzy. Wait, he's holding an umbrella in that one. But, we check the image. You can clearly say his umbrella is bent. Meaning that something bent his umbrella. And it could be related to the electrical cord. That's when I lost my temper and flew into a furious frenzy. I just gave him a light, gentle shove to the chest. And when you did that, there was no severed cable anywhere to be seen? Right, there was nothing like that at all. But is it possible that you merely overlooked it? Well, I guess it's possible. What are you doing? Don't let that guy's steam roll over you like cheap asphalt? I believe that what's important here is that the moment the push occurred. Let's continue on with the testimony. Witness. This seems important. What was the loud noise? A loud noise? And what would you say that loud noise was, Mr. Wright? I'm not sure. But it was really loud. It was like, snap. Come to think of it, I wonder what that was. He. Clearly, Your Honor, it was the sound of the victim being electrocuted. No, clearly. It was the umbrella snapping. You're not qualified to decide that. What should I do? I'm treading on some dangerous ground here. I want some more details. But first I'm gonna save. Mr. Wright, that loud noise you heard may be extremely important. It is. So try to remember what it was. How do I put it? It was like a sharp crack. Ah, could it have been... Yes, could it have been? Hurry up and tell us. When I pushed him, he dropped the umbrella he was holding. He fell right on top of it and broke it. That was probably the noise I heard. But, if you check the image, the umbrella is nowhere near where he fell. What happened after he pushed him? An umbrella, huh? And did that umbrella belong to the victim? Yeah, it was a plastic umbrella, cheap and frail, kind of like the owner. And again, I wish I had any kind of umbrella. I was totally soaked to the bone. Miss Faye, what do you think? Is there something important to that testimony just now? Well? Of course it's important! This is it, Mia. The new information you've been waiting for. Of course it's important. No, this cheap umbrella is more than important. It's vital. I want to officially have it entered into the testimony. Ah, how perfectly fitting. Flimsy information for a flimsy lawyer. The court agrees to the defense's request. Witness, please add the bit about the cheap umbrella to your testimony. Okay, we're making progress. I think I could just challenge it with the photo again, but I'm not gonna do that yet. And a question first. So Mr. Swallow fell on top of his umbrella, and you are certain of this? Yeah, it was right there under him. Actually, if it hadn't been under him, I was planning on borrowing it for myself. The umbrella, you mean? Well, yeah, you see, I was wearing this sweater in here. Dolly stayed up late for nights at a time knitting it for me. I didn't want the rain to dampen the handsome symbol of her love. Oof. My stomach is not to be used for your personal soccer ball, Mia. I'm so sorry. Continue with your testimony, witness. After you shoved the victim, did you leave the scene right away? Yes, I did. I admit it. I was furious. You left without even checking Mr. Swallow's condition? Well, yeah. But like I said, I got worried about him later. At that time, did you see anyone else at the scene of the crime? Cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Nope, nobody. Jeez, could that stupid cough possibly sound any phonier? In that case, it's very hard to believe someone else could have been the murderer. Unless we can find something that shows his innocence from the testimony, dear. I'm afraid the judge will make his final decision with no remorse whatsoever. Yes, sir. Right now, I need more info. Info that will help me turn up some contradictions. This one I want to save up. And the contradiction is this photo yet again. I believe this is the only evidence I've presented so far in this case. For our first case, it makes sense, like, you got one really strong piece of evidence that just solves everything. Why didn't you testify about the umbrella from the very beginning? Come on. If I had mentioned that, I would have been able to counter the prosecution's arguments earlier. What do you mean by that? Take another look at the crime scene photo. According to Mr. Wright, the victim fell on top of his umbrella. However, if you look closely, the umbrella is nowhere near the victim. Actually, it's by the electrical pole. You're absolutely right. The conclusion here is obvious. After the defendant left, the victim moved from where he fell. In other words, after he was pushed by the defendant, Mr. Swallow was still alive. No! Order, order, order. The victim, he moved? Mr. Payne, the umbrella in this photo. Where is it now? Well, it was collected by the police at the crime scene. I want it presented as evidence immediately. Umbrella added to the court record. But the umbrella could have simply been blown there by the wind. According to the testimony, the victim fell on top of the umbrella. There's simply no way it could have been blown there by the wind. I know this matter of the umbrella seems relatively trivial, but as long as the smallest doubt remains, I cannot render final judgment. No! I must say, I still find it hard to believe that a huge hole has been blown into the prosecution's case by the defendant's testimony. Phoenix's testimony. The victim fell on top of the umbrella. Loud sound when it happened. Well done, Mia. Hee hee hee. Hee 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 hee. Mr. Payne, what are you chuckling about? Pardon me, Your Honor. It seems I was expecting too much of a free ride. It was foolish to think I could establish guilt through cross-examination alone. I'm afraid I don't follow what you're saying. I have some evidence I was withholding from the court. Let me guess, you have another witness? Oh. Another witness I was withholding from the court. Exactly. And the witness's testimony will be incontrovertible. Like, obviously controversial. It cannot be controversial. Okay. I don't know how to say that word, it sounds weird. Should just say it cannot be controversial. Well, who is this witness? Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. Seems kind of suspicious she's the girlfriend testifying against her boyfriend. It's pretty obvious she's the killer, but whatever. Dahlia Hawthorne? You don't mean Dolly? I do, Your Honor. The defendant's very own lover is a witness to the whole thing. That's right. She was at the scene of the crime when the murder took place. Why was she there? Can you answer that? Well, she's gonna testify. What? I'm sorry to break the bad news to you, my dear. Bad news? You couldn't be more wrong. Actually, I've been waiting for this. You can't be serious. Mia, what do you mean by that? I think this is a good point for us to stop at. The court will now enter a 20-minute recess. Afterwards, we will listen to the testimony of Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. April 11th at 11:52 a.m. District Court. Miss Faye, I'm sorry about what happened back there. It's alright. At least you told us the truth in the end, Mr. Wright. Yeah. So I guess I can start to relax then, huh? No. Relax, my boy? You can't be serious after hiding such important facts. But the next witness is my Dolly, right? Yeah, she doesn't care about you. She'll do anything to get out of murder. She'll save me. I just know she will. Nope, she will not. Why do you think that? Huh? What do you mean? She's the love of my life, that's why. The love of your life, huh? Would you mind telling me more about you and Miss Dahlia Hawthorne? Sure, no problem. Dolly and I, we first met about 8 months ago, right here in this very courthouse. Actually, I'm studying to be a lawyer on the side. Anyway. Oh yeah, I'm studying to be a lawyer on the side anyway. One day, she and I just bumped into each other in the reading room downstairs. That's why I really think it was fate that brought us together. As soon as I first set eyes on her, I knew she was the one for me. Oh, here, take a look at this. She gave this to me the day we met as a symbol of our love. She had been wearing it around her neck that day, but then she took it off. But before she gave it to me, she said, "I want you to carry this." So she gave it to you as a present, I see. This darling little bottle is filled with memories of my darling little Dolly. It certainly is a little bottle, alright. It makes me so happy I show it to everyone I meet. I want to share my happiness with the whole world. Small bottle necklace given to Wright on the day they met. He shows it to everyone. Anyway. After that, you and Miss Hawthorne started dating? Yeah, but she's so shy. Every time I see her, she always says the same thing to me. Please give it back now. What a strange girl asking for a present back like that. By the way, Mr. Wright, the day you first met Dahlia Hawthorne 8 months ago, it wouldn't happen to have been on August 27th, would it? Huh? Yeah, it was. But how did you know? But how did you... This happened on August 27th, right here in this courthouse. Is this a newspaper clipping? Let's see. Murder in the courthouse? Murder? What are you reading there? Let me see that. Oh, I see. Yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to say. I think I understand why you suddenly took such a keen interest in this case. You believe there is some connection between these two cases, am I correct? Newspaper clipping added to the court record. I hope you don't mind, Mr. Grossberg. Can I read it? Yes, I can. Very little information is being disclosed at this time, since the victim of yesterday's incident in the district courthouse cafeteria is said to have been a lawyer. However, police are questioning the 19-year-old female college student who was sitting with the victim. And that's it. It's one page. It's a clipping, so I guess makes sense. I need to finish this myself. Ah, yes, but I'm afraid what you have will not be enough, my dear. I'll go and have a look in the downstairs reading room and see what else I can find. Thank you. I want to do whatever I can to be of help to you, Mia. Well, it looks like the recess is about over. We'd better all get moving. I guess so. That recess sure seemed longer than 20 minutes, though. To be continued. Yes, I'd like to save my progress. Oh, I already saved it. There we go. I am going to be right back and get some water. Okay, I'm back. And court will now reconvene. Mr. Payne, please call your witness. This next person is someone who witnessed the crime as it happened. I believe that's true, because I believe she killed him. The prosecution calls Miss Dahlia Hawthorne to the stand. What's with this stiff silence? In my long career as a judge, I have been deceived by many witnesses. My job to doubt, to take no one at their word. But in your case, I must admit, you radiate a glow of complete sincerity. Well, that's not looking good for me. Can't believe he actually said that. Luckily, though, if you get them right, they lose all that sincerity. At least I assume that's the case, since that's the case with most of the witnesses that seem like totally innocent. Oh, now then, witness, could you please state your full name? Don't worry, sweetie, there's no need to be nervous. Judge, are you hitting on why can't I think? The defendant's, girlfriend? If anyone says anything rude, you can be sure I'll cut them right down to size. And I will bash them with my gavel. I love how they look straight at me when they say that. Thank you for calming my nerves. You are all so nice. I almost feel right at home. Not at all. It was nothing. If we may move on now, what is your full name and occupation? My name is Dahlia Hawthorne. I'm a junior in literature at the Ivy University. I just want to say, it's an honor for me to be here in your noble presence. The honor is all mine. No, the honor is all mine. Well, we know whose milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Sir, is there something I can help you with? You just go on and say whatever is on your mind. I'm sure that there must be some kind of mistake. Feeny wouldn't kill anyone, I just know it. Yes, yes, I can see why you'd say that. She's going to be a tough witness, alright. It only took her 12 seconds to wrap them all around her little finger. Now then, please proceed with your testimony. Let's hear about what you witnessed at the day of the incident, if you please. Phoenix murdered the victim in cold blood with a knife. Wait, they weren't killed by a knife. I had been planning to go back to Feeney's place after class was over, but I decided to just wander around in some back alley. Feeney and Doogie? I don't know how he says it. They were talking behind the building. Then suddenly, Dougie got all wobbly and just collapsed. That doesn't match what happened. That's when Feeney noticed that I was there. I went to go and find some other students, and they called the authorities. I don't know what to say. According to you, Miss Hawthorne, the defendant didn't do anything wrong. Young lady, as old as I am, even I recall how hot the flames of young passion can burn. Nevertheless, it is my job to discover the truth. Please tell us the truth. But I would never. That's more than enough, witness. I won't allow this to continue. What do you mean by that? Please, let me proceed with my cross-examination, Your Honor. I, for one, don't plan to win my case on a bunch of paper-thin lies. Hee-hee. You haven't changed a bit, Mia Fey. What's this? So, you two are acquainted? Yes, we've met before, once. In any case, Miss Fey, the floor is all yours. It's good to see you again, Madam Fey. Madam? I'm no one's grandma yet, girlie. Are you saying that the victim just collapsed on his own? Yes. In other words, the defendant never touched the victim. Is that right? I was watching the whole time. Feeney never did a thing to Dougie. If I press her for no good reason, I just know the judge will get angry with me. So what should I do about her testimony just now? Like, it's definitely this one, but I don't know what I'm supposed to present. Do I present his testimony? That would make the most sense. Let's, try it. feeble lies are not very becoming, Miss Hawthorne. So let's drop them, shall we? What? I would never. Miss Fay, I will not allow you to badger this witness. I believe the defense is engaged in a fishing expedition. That is, she has no supporting... Please don't glare at me like that. I'm just doing my job. Now then, Miss Hawthorne. The defendant's palm print was found on Mr. Swallow's leather jacket. Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know how to show that, though. But luckily, she said it for me. It has already been shown that Mr. Wright did in fact push the victim. What? There's no need to try and cover for the defendant. It'd be much better if you came out and told us the whole truth. There's nothing to worry about, young lady. Just tell us everything that you saw. Yes, Your Honor. I will. If you don't mind, I'd like to revise my testimony. Looks like we're finally getting somewhere. Actually, I didn't see the moment he pushed Dougie. Didn't look like they were fighting, and I didn't hear anything unusual either. So this is the other contradiction, because there was definitely a loud noise. So I'm gonna save. I'm just gonna present it. Like, there's no point in me even pressing. You say you didn't hear anything unusual. Is that correct? Yes, that's why I was very relaxed looking at the scenery around me. That's nice, but I find that just a little odd. I have here the testimony of your boyfriend, Mr. Phoenix Wright. And he clearly testified to the effect that when he pushed the victim, he heard a sharp, loud noise. He said that? If you were really that close to the two of them, why didn't you hear this noise as well? Well, maybe the noise just wasn't all that memorable. But according to Mr. Wright's testimony, it was a sharp noise like a snap. There's no way a noise like that could fail to make an impression. May I have a moment to answer? By all means. I know the reason why I didn't hear the noise. You see, the truth is, I had my headphones on and was listening to music at the time. Headphones? You mean that both of your ears were covered? The rain was just beginning to let up. But it seemed as though Thor wasn't ready for his fun to come to an end yet. So the sky continued to flash and rumble. Thunder and lightning, huh? Yes, I'm afraid of the sound of thunder, so I put my headphones on to block it out. He. Well, Your Honor. Sounds kinda weird. The rain would let up, but then thunder, but whatever. As you can see, there weren't any contradictions in her testimony after all. Wait a sec, Mia. That testimony just now. She said something that could totally change this whole case. She was listening to music. No, there was lightning. Your Honor, there is a problem with the witness's testimony. What do you mean? Didn't you notice? She said there was lightning, correct? Yes, what about it? Well, lightning is actually a large discharge of electricity in the atmosphere, am I right? Now's not the time for a science lesson, Miss Fey. Yes, Your Honor. Anyway, since the cause of death was electrocution, isn't it possible that the victim died from being hit by a bolt of lightning? I must admit, the thought had not occurred to me. What kind of thoughts do occur to this guy, anyway? This entire case is built on the premise that Mr. Doug Swallow was murdered. But that very premise itself is mistaken. The defense believes that Mr. Swallow was in fact the victim of a stray bolt. I think she murdered him still, though. It appears the defense may be onto something, but this puts us in a better position, even if we're wrong. To be that the death was actually accidental? Alright, you did it, Mia. You're not out of the woods yet, Mia. I'll be taking that not guilty. He. I'm hurt that you have such a low opinion of me, Miss Fey. Huh? I'm not a fool, you know. The prosecution has done its research, Your Honor. Found that there were no lightning strikes on that day at that location. What? But that contradicts her testimony. What's more, we have evidence that the electrical cable was definitely linked to this case. Why didn't you mention it before? He acts so shocked, and then it's like, yeah, we already knew about that. Like, what? Evidence, Mr. Payne? Well, what is it? What is this evidence? This affidavit. And who is this affidavit from? It's from the bellboy from the hotel. No. The pharmacologist students who were conducting experiments in their labs that day. Allow me to read out to the court the testimony of the pharmacology students. All equipment in the labs lost power all of a sudden at around 3 p.m. that day. Was it a blackout? All of the lab's equipment runs on high voltage, Your Honor. So you're saying the equipment lost power because... Precisely. They lost power because of a severed electrical cable. Power outrage occurred at approximately 3 p.m. Which fits with the time of death listed in the autopsy report. Exactly. In other words, the victim died as a result of touching the severed electrical cable. Is this when I present this one where the watch isn't actually exactly 3? Still don't know if that's like too petty of a difference. According to the students, the cables were very old. They were planning on having them replaced in the near future. I see. Apparently the cables had become so brittle that even the smallest bump would have caused them to break. Let's see. Hit this one. Student's testimony added to the court record. However, there is one thing that troubles me. The cable could have been broken by any small bump. Then it wouldn't have snapped. Then it wouldn't have snapped if it hadn't been bumped into, correct? Well, I suppose you could say that. Miss Fey, do you have any thoughts regarding the cause of the severed cable? could have severed the cable. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna save again. Your Honor, I don't. I like how this is looking one bit to come up with something to try and regain some momentum. If it pleases the court, the defense would like to state its opinion. Well then, let's hear it. Ooh, or what was it that caused the cable to break? The umbrella. I'm gonna say the umbrella. But I don't think that's... Is that correct? It seemed like the most likely scenario is that the umbrella caused it to break. I'm gonna present the umbrella. This is it. This is why the cable snapped. Well, Your Honor? I believe that the only thing that has snapped in the defense. Okay, so no, it's not the umbrella. So it must be a person. Specifically, it's either her or it's Doug. We could try her. Or it could be Phoenix, but I don't want to say Phoenix because that doesn't make any sense. Let's first say her. No, it's not that. What is it? What caused the cable to snap? Or who caused the cable to snap? Like, I don't know... Was it this necklace? That doesn't make any sense. It wasn't the umbrella. I don't know how it could have been the cold killer axe. So it kind of has to be a person. Let's say Doug himself. No. I don't know where they're going with this. Is it Phoenix himself? He snapped it. Your Honor, please think back to Mr. Wright's testimony. The defendant's testimony said after he pushed the victim, he heard a loud, sharp noise. Now, this happened at around 3 p.m., correct? Yes, that sounds right. Wait, are you saying that the lab equipment lost power at 2:55 p.m., which fits right into Mr. Wright's timeline? In other words, it was Mr. Wright's shove that caused the power outage. Yes, the prosecution has also come to that same conclusion. But we're gonna turn it around. And it was that very shove that caused Mr. Swallow to be electrocuted. I'm afraid I can't agree with you there, Mr. Payne. What's that supposed to mean? Take a good look at where the victim landed after being shoved. See the umbrella? It's by the electrical pole. That's right, the victim banged into the electrical pole as a result of being pushed. It was that impact that caused the cable to break. Well, that makes sense, and then the victim was electrocuted. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but no, it doesn't make sense at all. If the victim was shoved into the far pole, then he couldn't have been electrocuted by the severed cable in the foreground here. Ah, in other words, someone other than my client must have electrocuted the victim. Order! Order in the court. Ah, the lamentations of my enemy. How I've longed to hear them. It's true the defense is absolutely correct. There doesn't seem to be any way the defendant... Mr. Judge, sir? May I say something? The Madam Attorney's explanation. She said some things that are a little different than I remember them. What the? Please, just once more. May I please testify one last time, please, Mr. Judge? Of course it's alright. Just go right ahead and give your new testimony. This is it. She's finally starting to show her true colors. Pink. The truth is, Feeney pushed him twice. First time was into the electrical pole that's when the cable broke. Then Dougie tried his best to run away from him, but Feeney caught up and crashed into him from behind. The cable snapping and Dougie being electrocuted, it all occurred in less than a minute. So after being shoved, the victim got up and tried to run away. And that is when the defendant pushed him for the second time. I'm so sorry, Feeney, but I just have to tell you the truth. Am I doing the right thing? Am I, Mr. Judge? Of course you are, my dear. As painful as it may seem, you are. But she's not telling the truth. Now then, Miss Fay, you may proceed with your cross-examination. Miss Hawthorne, previously in your testimony you said the following. Actually, I didn't see the moment he pushed Dougie. I know, I'm sorry, I wanted to protect Feeney. That's why you basically lied to the court? I was a bad girl, I know. Mr. Judge? Yes? Would you please forgive little old me? Of course he won't. Oh, come now. It was just a little old white lie. We'll forget it this time, but please be more careful from now on, alright? Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Judge. Not at all. Ho ho ho. The judge had better be more careful himself. A dark alley is friendlier than that girl. Got an achievement. You're saying you actually saw the victim get pushed into the electrical pole. I know he doesn't look it, but Feeny can be a bit of an imp when he wants to be. Oh, really? But I never imagined that he would cause an electrical cable to break. He really is scary when he gets mad. Yes, he sounds very like a very dangerous individual indeed. So let me get this straight. You are happily listening to music on your headphones while you watch this scene unfold? What? Miss Faye, I'll have to ask you to stop badgering the witness. I wasn't happy. I was so scared that I couldn't even move. All I could do was stand there and cheer them on. Cheer them on? What do you mean by that? Well, I wish the best for them both, and that they would each give the fight their all. That's very sweet of you to be so supportive. Shut up, Judge. And what happened after that? That doesn't sound quite right. There were handprints found on the chest of the victim's leather jacket. Mr. Payne, were there also prints found on the back of his leather jacket? Well, no, there weren't. Madam Faye, may I suggest that you listen a little more carefully? It said that he crashed into him from behind, right? Why, Feeny wouldn't leave any prints behind in that case, would he? He's also positioned like he would have been pushed, which... not looking good for me. Ugh. Did you actually witness the moment the victim was electrocuted? I'm sorry, I didn't actually see it. I turned my eyes away. That's understandable. Yes, indeed. It would have been a horrific sight for anyone to behold. I don't figure out the contradiction here. It's all over. Didn't have much time to come up with her lie, so this is my best chance. There must be a hole in her testimony somewhere. Think, Mia. So... this could be the contradiction? Like, this is pretty obviously a contradiction, because... how would he be holding this? I don't know. So, an impact around that point in time. I have a feeling it has to do with the image of the watch. I feel like it has to be this one, right? Maybe not. But this is my best guess right now. But it could also be this, since it says he died at 3 p.m. Let's first try and present this. Or present. Your Honor, that statement contradicts this evidence. I feel like I didn't get it. In what way? I'm not sure I understand. Actually, I don't quite get it either. So is it this one with the watch? Let's try this one. Well, that stopped the music. It was my first guess. But I was a bit doubting myself a bit. That's enough, witness. I'm afraid I don't understand. You will in a minute. Could you please take a look at this picture? Oh, that medicine. That's the one Feeny likes to take for his cold. That's not the medicine I want you to look at. It's the wristwatch. It stopped at the precise time the victim was electrocuted. In other words, 3:05 p.m. Yes, and your point is, Miss Faye? My point is this. What time it was when the lab suffered that power outage due to the... What was the time the lab suffered that power outage due to the cable snapping? Well, according to the student's testimony, the answer is clear. It was 2:55 p.m. Ah! Would you care to explain to the court, Miss Dahlia Hawthorne, what exactly happened during this 10-minute interval? The defense proposes that it was during this interval that the real murderer killed Mr. Doug Swallow. Order! Order! This is nonsense. The real murderer? Even if you can't deny the time... Even you can't deny the time between the cable breaking and the electrocution. Are completely unaccounted for. Then who was it? Who else are you saying could have done it? There's only one person who could have murdered Mr. Swallow. Only after my client had left the scene. Was there a window of opportunity for the real killer? Miss Faye, is the defense ready to indict someone as this real killer? It's finally time. The moment I've been waiting for. Yes, Your Honor, we are ready. Very well, but remember, if you accuse the wrong person, you will be penalized. Think very carefully before you speak, Miss Faye. Not that much of a penalty. Now then, Miss Faye, let's have it. Who is the real killer? It's her! Obviously. It could only have been you, Dahlia Hawthorne. What? How can you... Defense is grasping at straws. 10 minutes passed between the time the cable broke and the time of the electrocution. What exactly were you doing that whole time, Miss Hawthorne? Were you really listening to some music while cheering them both on, as they thought? Find it hard to believe that you didn't lift a finger to stop the men dearest to you. Order, order, Miss Faye. What? I mean, why? That was... Miss Hawthorne, I believe you did witness the two men fighting on that day. However, after Mr. Wright pushed the victim and subsequently left the scene, it was you who pushed Mr. Swallow to his death by your very own hands. Ah! How can you say something so mean, Madam Faye? I didn't do anything. Miss Faye, this is very serious. Your Honor, please, I have something I want to say. Achoo. You. What is it? Please strike everything the defense said just now from the court record. What the? Are you daft? You're totally wrong, Miss Faye. Dolly, she couldn't do something like that. Mr. Wright, get back in your seat. Bailiff, grab that man. Ah! Achoo, achoo. Leave my dolly alone. Achoo, cough. That boy has gotten himself in way over his head. Oh, Mr. Grossberg, you're back. Seems I arrived just in the nick of time. Found the police report on the incident in your newspaper clipping. Thank you so much. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Location, District Courthouse Cafeteria. Date time, August 27th at 4 p.m. Victim, Diego Armando. Occupation, lawyer. Suspect, Dahlia Hawthorne. Armando ingested poison while interviewing the suspect regarding another case. Traces of poison were found in the victim's coffee cup. No poison was found in the vicinity or on the suspect's person. It is unclear how the poison entered the victim's coffee cup. You'd better take a good look at it. It, details how you came to lose your boyfriend. So Armando is our boyfriend. Now then, the defense has made a very serious accusation. Mr. Payne, what do you have to say about this? Well, really, Your Honor, May I interrupt you for just a moment, Mr. Prosecutor? Ah, don't you worry, my dear, I have the situation well in hand. Sniffle. Go right ahead. Madam Faye, are you seriously accusing me of killing my sweet Dougie? Yes, I am. Not only am I saying you murdered Doug Swallow, but you also tried to pin the whole thing on your current lover, Phoenix Wright. I told you that you should let me handle this. Sorry, please go ahead. How can you say that? I'm absolutely devoted to my dear Feeny. The notion that I would try to frame him is ludicrous. But what about this? She's always asking for her necklace back. This is all just too much for poor little me to bear. I believe the girl is trying to ask what on earth her motive would be. The answer to that lies somewhere in this police report. It must. "8 months ago, an incident occurred in the basement cafeteria of this building. And then, that same day, the two of them accidentally meet. Your Honor, the defense requests further testimony from Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. Further testimony? What about? about the events of the day when she first met the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright. What could possibly that have to do with this case? The witness claims that she has no reason to frame the defendant, am I correct? Well, I have evidence to suggest she in fact had a very good reason. Very well then, the court grants the defense a request. Young lady, would you mind staying on for just a bit longer? Of course not, Mr. Judge. Get ready for the battle of your life, Dahlia Hawthorne. First met my darling Feeny 8 months ago. It's like we were destined to meet in this very courthouse's basement reading room. The moment our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat. We've been going out ever since that fateful day. We're so lovey-wovey, we literally make people sick. It's just jealousy, I think. Mr. Wright, do that again, and you will be held in contempt of court. And now we enter the final act of our little drama. As we used to say in the days of my youth, go get her. Except you were talking about something very different. Alright, I'm gonna press them even though I think it's the last one. Wait, that's not included in her testimony? Alright, I'm just gonna press her. So until that time, you had been dating Doug Swallow? Yes, I'm a real fool, I know. Letting my emotions change so quickly, I'm ashamed of myself. No, not at all. Look at me, I'm infamous for changing my mind. My critics have even taken to calling me Judge Fickle. Ho ho ho. Maybe you should look for a different line of work. Despite that, however, he always hands down the correct verdict. That's why some people also call him the Great Judge Genie. It's like we were destined. Oh yeah. The courthouse reading room? That's a strange place to meet the love of your life. It's not true, Madam Faye. After all, Feeny was not only an art student, but he was also planning to become a lawyer. Not talking about him, I'm talking about you, Miss Hawthorne. What was a literature student like you doing in a courthouse reading room? Line of questioning is a waste of time. It has nothing to do with our murder case. Faye, I'm warning you. This has nothing to do with Mr. Swallow's case. I'm just gonna wait for now. Actually, I'm gonna save instead. And then I'm gonna press. Your Honor, if you'd allow me some latitude, I think I can establish relevance. I'm not only blaming her for one murder, I'm blaming her for 2 murders. Please ask her to continue on with her testimony. Very well. Young lady, I've got a simple question for you. What were you doing downstairs in the courthouse reading room? If it pleases your honor, the answer is simply this. I'd come to this courthouse to do some research for a paper I was writing. A paper you were writing. I feel like I have to press her a bit more, figure out what that is. You were writing a paper on what? On the relationship between the modern Senryo poetry and the criminal underworld. Ho ho ho, that sounds like a fascinating research idea. Am I getting old? Now, I've even forgotten what I've forgotten. Again with the midlife crisis stuff? Yeah, why did that girl really come to this court? Isn't that what you wanted to know? Speaking of forgetting things, you haven't forgotten the police report, have you? Through a lot of trouble to get it, my dear, so be sure you read it carefully. Okay, let's read it. There's nothing in there that specifically states anything about her, but it could be it. I think I'm gonna save here. And present the thing he was talking about. The music changed. Miss Hawthorne, you weren't here because of your research paper, were you? Didn't you actually come here for a much more important reason? What is the meaning of this cocky smile on your face, Miss Fay? 8 months ago, right here in this very courthouse, there was another tragedy. Another tragedy? Do you mean the incident in which the attorney was poisoned? Hey, the judge knew. The name of the suspect in that incident is listed here in this report. That name is Dahlia Hawthorne. What? Dahlia Hawthorne? Yes, the sweetie pie of everyone's eye, Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. She was the prime suspect in a criminal case just 8 months ago. Order, order, order. This is unbelievable. It's true then, the loveliest rose... Miss Fay, that's not fair. Can't slander my witness. I, Winston Payne, will not allow it. Mr. Prosecutor, I believe I was speaking? Pardon me, go right ahead. It's true that, about 8 months ago, the police expressed some interest in me. Expressed some interest, huh? I'll have to hold them in contempt of court. Mr. Judge, sir, I know I'm under oath, so I'll tell you the absolute truth. I did not commit the crime that occurred that incident 8 months ago. During that incident 8 months ago. I see. Okay. Tied the two crimes together. I just got to stay on the offensive. Well done, Mia. Oh, you've really lit a fire under my heart. And my buttocks. I can hardly tell which is more inflamed, my spirit or my hemorrhoids. Literally all he talks about is his hemorrhoids. The poison. I met the lawyer who was poisoned to discuss something in the cafeteria that day. I left my seat for just a moment, and that's when it happened. From what I heard, it was a liquid poison that is lethal at just 2 teaspoons. How do you know so much about this poison? Whatever. Not only that, I heard it was a very special kind of poison. See, I'm innocent. I wouldn't even know where to get a poison like that, let alone know all these facts about it. So that's what happened here 8 months ago. However, as you've heard from the witness's testimony, she has nothing to do with it. I think the defense is just about out of tricks. I don't think so. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Payne, but I'm afraid the defense has many more tricks up its sleeve today, and I'll be sure to show them to you before the end of this cross-examination. What the... Why does the defense suddenly feel stronger? Aha, Mia, you're glowing with true lawyer's aura, my dear. That proud posture and self-confidence absolutely smashing. What were you talking about with the defense attorney? Well, I'm sorry, but that's confidential. According to the report, you were being interviewed regarding another case. A lawyer that was killed said he wanted to talk about an incident I was caught up in when I was younger. Why don't you tell us all what that incident was? That has absolutely nothing at all to do with this case. Objection sustained. The defense's question is stricken from the record. You get involved in a lot of incidents, don't you, Miss Hawthorne? Well, I guess I just was born under a bad sign. Don't worry, Dolly. I'll protect you. You heard the man. Now that is true love, young lady. Oh, Feeny, please. Gag, those two really are making me ill, albeit for decidedly different reasons. How long were you gone? I've already answered all these questions for the police. If you must know, maybe 10 or 20 minutes. And where were you during that stretch of time? Using the toilet? What are you saying, Miss Fay? Toilet? My perfect little dolly doesn't poop? You heard the defendant, Miss Fay. Better luck next time. Oh, Feeny, please. Police have already looked into this whole matter. Line of questioning is nothing but a waste of the court's time. Objection sustained. Miss Hawthorne, please continue with your testimony. How do you know so much about the poison? About how much liquid is 2 teaspoons? Well, let me see. My bottle of everyday eye drops says it's half a fluid ounce, which is equal to 3 teaspoons. It's about 2/3 of that amount. The poison was found in the lawyer's mug of coffee. Must have been after I left the table, so I must have quietly slipped it in there. Not only that, I heard it was a very special kind of poison. A special kind of poison? How so? Well, I heard that it's almost impossible to detect. Oh, and where would something like that come from? I'm sorry, all I know is what I overheard from the policeman saying. Said something about using advanced chemical processes to purify it. Chemical processes? Well, well, that's quite... Wait a minute. Chemical processes... Doug was working in pharmacology back then. Do you think maybe she could have gotten it from Doug? Impressive. Most impressive. The better question is, how did the criminal get something like that? I know. Oh, but you do. You do know where to get a poison like that. And that's the reason they didn't arrest you? Because no one could show how you could have gotten the poison? I think that's a good enough reason, Madam Faye. But I can. He's right, and I think we've all had enough of Mrs. Faye's questions. Miss Faye's question. So in essence, the main reason Miss Hawthorne was never arrested for this crime was because no one could show how she could have obtained the poison. Then all we have to do is find the way to establish how she could have gotten some, right? Great, now just how did a lit student get a hold of poison of all things? We're gonna present his boyfriend, her boyfriend. Whoops. You wouldn't know how to get that kind of poison? I don't believe you. What? In fact, you had easy access to that kind of poison, didn't you? At your boyfriend's lab. Boyfriend? You mean the victim, Doug Swallow? That's right. Up until 8 months ago, Miss Hawthorne was dating Mr. Swallow. And if you'll recall, Mr. Swallow was a pharmacology student at Ivy University. Pharmacology. His laboratory contained highly advanced chemistry equipment. In fact, without such equipment, the culprit could never have obtained such a rare and special poison. Well, Miss Hawthorne, it seems you had access to such a poison after all. And then, it was a matter of slipping it into the victim's coffee when he wasn't looking. The only person who could have done that was the one sitting at his very table. You. No! Order, order, order. Could it be? That's nothing but a baseless May I say something, Madam Faye? What is it, Miss Hawthorne? The amount of poison in the coffee was 2 teaspoons, correct? In order to carry that much liquid, you would need some kind of container. Well, yes, that's true. I was searched immediately after the incident took place, but you did disappear. Meaning, there was a 10 to 20 minute window in which you could have disposed of the container. Quite true, in fact, the entire courthouse was turned upside down. But they didn't find a suspicious container anywhere, did they? He's right. He even mentioned that in the report. Well, you could have easily gotten rid of something like that small. Excuse me, madam, but this is a court of law. You're saying I threw the poison container away. Think you need to show some kind of proof. Proof? You got me good with that one. I don't need to save there. Pretty confident I'm on the right track. Provide some evidence, or I'll have to disallow this line of questioning, Miss Faye. Unless we can come up with some evidence, we're going to lose this lead. Police conducted a full body search of Dahlia and the entire courthouse. Yet the container holding the poison disappeared right after the crime occurred. You're going to accuse the young lady of committing the murder. Then where is the container the poison was carried in? What happened to it? What did happen to it? Wait a minute. He called this a bottle. Is it really a bottle? And he gave it to Phoenix? OMG. I bet it's that. You were forced to get rid of the container in a hurry, weren't you? That's why you passed it on to someone that had nothing to do with the case. Someone that you knew wouldn't be searched. Who is this person? Mr. Phoenix Wright, of course. So the defendant was this witness's accomplice? Of course not. She gave the poison to him, disguised as a present. What? But that's... That's why she wanted it back, because it had the evidence of her murdering the lawyer. That's a charming little necklace. Is this a little bottle? It's really quite cute. So what about it? What does it mean, Miss Faye? The day that the witness met and fell for Mr. Phoenix Wright was 8 months ago. August 27th, the very same day as the poisoning is. Under the pretense of love, the witness gave my client a present. All for the purpose of hiding the one piece of evidence that would give her away. What? Are you saying that a deadly poison is in here? No, there's no longer any poison in that bottle. However, certain if the crime lab were to analyze it, they would find a trace amount. No! Order in the court. On behalf of Dolly, I object. Mr. Wright, control yourself. I won't let you bully her like this. Mr. Wright, I thought I told you to stay in your seat. Mr. Wright, why? Why are you going through so much trouble to protect her? Why? Because I'm madly in love with her. Madly in love. I haven't heard anyone say that in a long time. Mr. Wright, have you ever thought about this? Why exactly would a woman like Dahlia Hawthorne want to date you anyway? Well, I guess she must be madly in love with me too. Mr. Wright, please open your eyes. At this point in the trial, I think it should be obvious to everyone. The real reason that Dahlia Hawthorne is dating you is because she's madly in love with you. Because of that necklace. Dahlia Hawthorne was not, and is not madly in love with you. The only thing she's after is that bottle necklace you love to wear around your neck. A necklace? Back there in the waiting room, you said it yourself. Yeah, but she's so shy. Every time I see her, she's always says the same thing to me. Please give it back now. What a strange girl asking for a present back like that. For Dahlia Hawthorne, that necklace is irrefutable evidence of her crime. That's why she absolutely had to get it back. You're lying. But you never gave it back to her. And to make things worse for her, you insisted on showing it to everyone you met. That's why she... I don't believe you. No! That's a lie! Ah, eek! Mia, are you alright? Oh, the defendant, he's guilty! Bailiff, hurry! Mia, are you alright? Yes, I think so. That boy! He went completely insane! Where's Mr. Wright? Looks like the bailiff caught him, so he should be back soon enough. Thank goodness. Oh no! What is it? The bottle necklace! Miss Hawthorne's present! It's gone! What? That's terrible! Mr. Wright must have grabbed it when he slammed into me. Foolish boy. That's the only thing that could have saved him. What in blazes are we supposed to do now? Mr. Wright, this sort of behavior is unprecedented in the history of this court. I'm sorry. I'm afraid that your apology is not enough. Mr. Wright, what did you do with the bottle necklace? Forgive me, I'm sorry. It's okay, just give back the necklace. I ate it. You what? You ate it? It was too big to swallow, so I had to chew it into little bits first, but yeah. What the? What? What is he doing now? How did he eat the necklace? Your Honor, you've got to stop the trial. Mr. Wright, are you feeling okay? Does your stomach hurt? That bottle you swallowed may have had some poison left in it. It seems the defendant has proven the prosecution's case for us. Clearly, the bottle did not contain a deadly poison. How can you be so sure? It's obvious. As you can see, the defendant is still very much alive. As for the poison, more like a fledgling defense attorney's overactive imagination. So it would seem. No, there must be some mistake. He didn't actually eat the necklace, since how would he? The bottle must not have had any poison left in it. Either that, or the poison must have lost its potency. There. It's alright, rookie. Trusting your client is the most noble thing a defense attorney can do. It's heartwarming to see that you place this much faith in Mr. Wright. But that's how it is for us on the prosecution side, too. What was that noise? For example, I would trust a witness, Miss Hawthorne, to my very life. Which is why I can state that your assessment of her is completely wrong. That's enough. Unfortunately, Miss Faye, I cannot accept your explanation of these events. But why? It may be impossible for a beginner like you to understand, but in a court of law, evidence is everything. And after I proved so much, is she going to get away with everything? Well, now that the suspicion surrounding Miss Hawthorne has been cleared up, I would like to proceed with the Mr. Wright! I'm sorry, Miss Faye. Totally slipped my mind. I'm really sorry. I know you believed in me, and I feel like I let you down. Mr. Wright, what are you trying to say? There's something I forgot to tell you. What is it? That day. The day I met Doug Swallow. That girl, you shouldn't see her anymore. Hey, that's none of your business. I'm telling you for your sake, if you continue to see her, it's gonna be bad news. You're lying. Just listen to me. There's something you need to know about that girl. Last night, someone stole some poison from our lab. Poison? Same thing happened 8 months ago. A drug sample was stolen. She came to the lab that time, too. Could have only been her. That girl is a thief. Stop it! Don't talk about her like that. Is it true? Did he really say that? That's ridiculous. There's one more thing. After I pushed him that day, I got worried and came back to have a look. And she was there. Dolly was right there. She was crouched down next to him. What? She told me not to ever tell anyone about it, but I'm sorry, Dolly. Your Honor, the defendant is... Miss Faye, you tell them. Dolly didn't do it. She's innocent. So Dahlia stole poison 8 months ago too, huh? You put that together with Mr. Wright's testimony, and there's only one possible conclusion. The defense believes that Miss Dahlia Hawthorne stole some poison on the night before she killed Doug Swallow. The night before? Naturally, her motive for stealing it was to kill someone. Miss Faye, if you're so certain of your theory, then let me ask you this. He's gonna ask me who she was gonna poison, which would have been Phoenix himself, so she could get the poison back. Mia, this is your last chance. Think carefully now. Something that she desperately wanted to get back, therefore she was planning to kill the defendant. There was one person that was standing squarely in Miss Dahlia Hawthorne's way. That person was Mr. Phoenix Wright. Me? That's preposterous. After all, it was Doug Swallow that was murdered. Well, it's true that's how things worked out. But let's remember that Mr. Swallow died of electrocution, not poison. The person that Miss Hawthorne was planning to poison was, in fact, you, Phoenix Wright. There's no one else that it could be. But how can that be? I thought Mr. Wright and Miss Hawthorne were in love. Poor Mr. Wright. This must be killing him. Hang in there. I'll bring her to justice. I swear it. As I said before, the only thing Miss Hawthorne truly cared about was the one piece of evidence linking her to that incident 8 months ago. That's right. The bottle necklace. That's all she cared about. But even so, why? Why would she go so far as to murder him? 8 months ago, just after the fall of the attorney in the... fall of that attorney in the basement cafeteria, Dahlia Hawthorne could think of only one thing: to get rid of the bottle necklace as quickly as possible. No, it can't be. It was a pretty good move she made, too. The evidence was missing for a long time. But there was just one big problem. Although she got him to hide the evidence, Mr. Wright refused to return it to her. To him, the tiny bottle was a cherished treasure. He even showed it to everyone he met. You mean that's why she tried to kill Mr. Wright? Correct, Your Honor. It was to retrieve that piece of evidence. That can't be true! Beanie, what a joke you are. Honestly, how can any woman ever count on you for anything? I even told you time and time again to keep your trap shut about me and that necklace. You disgust me. Miss Hawthorne? It appears that we're nearing the end of this trial. Fine. I can tell you plan on making me into a criminal no matter what I say. Well, you are a criminal, so... You are a criminal, Miss Hawthorne. We'll see about that, but first, where's your evidence? Seems your sniveling little crybaby of a client has eaten the bottle as a snack. Well, hey old man, are you senile or something? Why don't you say something instead of sitting there with that dumb look on your face? Miss Hawthorne, what's happened to you? Are you really that shocked? Or do you prefer me this way, Mr. Judge? With absolutely no proof, you treat a voluntary witness like she's a mass murderer. Well, I have nothing more to say. I'll be heading home now if you don't mind. But we're not finished. Fine. Then ask this nasty old hag to finish up already. Can't let her get away this time. Stop, Mia. Keep pushing without any evidence. You could pay the ultimate price as a lawyer. The ultimate price? You'd be forced to take off your attorney's badge forever, I'm afraid. No! You'd better think it over carefully, Miss Fay. Or should I say, Miss Gray. Well, Miss Fay? Can you provide evidence that would establish her guilt once and for all? Can I? Let's see. Can I? Also, where'd the necklace... Oh, yeah, the necklace was eaten. If I mess up here, my career as a lawyer is over. But to be honest, at this point, I don't have any evidence that's well-founded. Even so, rather lose my attorney badge than let her get away with murder. Your Honor, the defense would like to present proof. Impossible, you can't possibly... Stupid woman. It's the opinion of the court that there has already been enough discussion. Therefore, I'll allow only one piece of evidence to be presented. Just one? If you're unable to establish her guilt, then I'm afraid that a very harsh verdict will immediately be handed down on Mr. Wright. I understand, Your Honor. I can just imagine the headliness for tomorrow's newspaper. Up-and-coming lawyer plummets to the earth before she gets a chance to soar. She was planning to poison Mr. Wright. that's the case, then the poison was probably in there. In the Cold Killer X! OMG! Thanks for the huge hint, Mia. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that. Well then, Miss Faye, please present your evidence. Show to this court irrefutable proof that Miss Hawthorne was planning to poison Mr. Wright. The Cold Killer X. Here it is, Your Honor. The evidence I will prove her guilt once and for all. Cold Killer X? Phoenix beloved cold medicine? He. Does our rookie defense attorney have a bit of a cold? If I did, I still wouldn't take this cold medicine. After all, it's been poisoned. What? Remember what the defendant said in his testimony? But I lost my bottle of it around lunchtime on the day of the accident. I always eat with Dolly, just the two of us. She was the one who took his bottle of Cold Killer X. Then she poisoned it, knowing that Mr. Wright was going to take some. And that's why it was in his hand. Because he took it from her. Now you're really grasping at straws. After all, it was the victim, Doug Swallow, that was holding the medicine. I would like the court to recall the crime that happened here 8 months ago. Where did Miss Hawthorne hide the evidence? Huh? What are you talking about? 8 months ago, the poison was hidden in her bottle necklace, which she then gave to someone else for safekeeping. Someone she had accidentally run into in the reading room. My client, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Yes, that's right. She did the same thing this time as well. After shoving the victim, Mr. Phoenix Wright left the scene of the crime. That is when the murderer, Dahlia Hawthorne, appeared. With her, she was carrying the poisoned bottle of Cold Killer X. This, of course, was so she could carry out her plan to murder Mr. Wright. I believe she did testify that she was going to meet with the defendant. Yes, and she heard and saw everything that happened at the scene of the crime, including what the defendant and victim were arguing about, and the cut electrical cable. That's when she realized, I can't allow Doug to live, or whatever. She used the severed electrical cable to silence him forever. Unfortunately for her, this is when the problem occurred. Mr. Wright, who she thought had left the scene, came back to check on the victim. On top of that, because of the power outage, some students showed up as well. It's hardly any wonder that she was, as she put it, in a state of panic. Recall, she was carrying that bottle of poisoned cold medicine. She must have thought, what if they searched me like they did 8 months ago? 8 months ago? Yes, she disposed of the evidence exactly the same way she did back then. She had someone else hold it. In this case, Doug Swallow. Oh, come on now, everyone. Surely you aren't fooled, are you? This stupid woman, she is nothing but a filthy, stinking liar. Right, Mr. Prosecutor? Huh? Yes, that's exactly right. It's just pure desperation. I wonder which one of us is the desperate one. So, Miss Hawthorne? This cold medicine, I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking some. Well, Mr. Wright ate the necklace of yours, right? Now it's your turn to prove your innocence. What do you say? If I'm just a filthy, stinking liar, then there's no need to worry. So come on, show us. I dare you to take some of this medicine right now. Grrr. Mia Fey, Mia Fey. Do you think you've won? Well, do you, Mia Fey? Oh, now she's pissed. Heh 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 heh. That's just fine. For the time being, victory is yours. For the time being? Well, I have a very long memory, you know. You and I will meet again, I'm certain of it. I don't think they meet again, because Mia gets killed by that, corp... What was it? Blue Corp? It was Red White of Blue Corp? Or something? Well then, Mr. Judge. I'll see you later too, okay? Huh? Why, yes. I'm going to spend a little quality time with the men in blue now. I wish you all the best. Ooh. It's finally over. I refuse to accept this. The defense hasn't shown a scrap of evidence to support their outrageous claim. But even so, your witness seems to have accepted it. I don't care, I'm Winston Payne. And I don't believe one word that this rookie lawyer has said. Well then, Mr. Payne, let me ask you this. Yes? Would you care to try this cold medicine? What? Just a little earlier, I could have sworn you said. There. It's alright, rookie. For example, I would trust the witness, Miss Hawthorne, with my very life. So if she's so trustworthy, then I'm sure there couldn't possibly be any poison in here, right? Well, you see, yes? And here comes the backpedal. Come on now, rookie killer. Show this rookie how it's done. How much trust do you really have for this woman? Are you willing to bet your life? Nah, that's it. My hair, my beautiful hair. What? No. What happened to his hair? Mr. Payne? About Miss Dahlia Hawthorne? It's like the scene in JoJo where Darby, ages like 40 years when he can't call. Mr. Payne, what about Dahlia Hawthorne? Yes, Your Honor? I'll file papers for her immediate arrest. Tragic, but not surprising. I knew there was something suspicious about her from the very beginning. Don't lie, just admit you were wrong. By the way, Miss Fey. Yes, Your Honor? Was it just me, or did you and Miss Dahlia Hawthorne seem to know each other? Your Honor, whether we did or not has no bearing on this case. Very well. Mr. Payne. This can't be happening. It's a nightmare. It's like losing to my daughter. It appears Mr. Payne has lost his spirit along with his hair. Does the defendant have anything further to say? It can't be true, my dear Dolly. Achoo. Very well then. I believe I'm ready to pass judgment and bring this trial to an end. Court finds defendant Phoenix Wright not guilty. Yay! This court is adjourned. April 11th, 3:16 p.m. District Court Defendant Lobby number 3. Mia, you were wonderful in there. Let's see, do we get to present him with evidence that she really did love him? Or do we give him our badge? Like, what do we do? There might not be a thing to present to him. Thank you for everything, Mr. Grossberg. For the happy ending. During the verdict, I thought my hemorrhoids were going to explode like Mount Vesuvius. Mr. Grossberg, do you, maybe think you could stop talking about them? That's rather rude. Anyway, this case really made me think. What does it really mean to have a relationship of mutual trust with the client? Perhaps it is we veteran lawyers who have lost sight of this. Oh, Mr. Wright, congratulations. May have to show something to him here. Thanks, you know, I was thinking. Go on. Dolly that I saw up there... The Dolly I saw up there on the witness stand. I don't think that was really her. What? Yeah, the Dolly I know could have never said those kinds of terrible things. Maybe she was like, I don't know, a fake or something. Boy, this poor kid still hasn't gotten a clue. You need to forget about her, Mr. Wright. For your own sake. Yeah, you're right. It's probably for the best. Also, you need to relax a bit more. Try to grow up a little. But, out of all my friends, everyone says I'm the most grown up. What kind of company does this guy keep? Let the music stop. Right now I'm studying to become a lawyer myself. That's what you keep saying. But I thought you were in the art department. Well, yeah, I am. There's a friend I desperately want to help. Mr. Edgeworth. And if I hurry, then I should still be able to save him in time. I see. Say, Miss Fay. A lawyer is someone who can help people when they're in trouble, right? You're right, I'm still new at this myself. But I think that's exactly what a lawyer is. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'll study my butt off. I'll become a lawyer for sure. I hope we see each other again someday. Maybe even in court. It's been 5 years since I was acquitted of all charges. I became a lawyer, like I planned, and managed to save my friend. But Mia has passed on to a better place. For me, this trial brings up a lot of painful memories. But it also brings up some very precious ones. And memories that I thought would never rise to the surface again. Mia is gone now. But even so, I can hear her in my mind. Phoenix, no matter what, always believe in your client. In a court of law, your greatest weapon is your belief. 5 long years. Something has happened that's made me think back to her words of wisdom. But that is a story for another day. Brand new episode has been added, and we have Godot. I literally know nothing about this guy except that he's a character, and his name's Godot, and he likes to drink coffee. The time is 1 a.m. Beep, 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 beep. Is it a microwave? Is it a time bomb? Detective, we made it! Ooh, what a relief. Glad the jewel is still safe. Hey, it's Gumshoe. Oh ho, you said it, pal. It must have been a rock-solid security that scared it off. Sure you wouldn't mind opening the safe just to check? Ah! We've been had! You're out front, guards, turn into the searchlights! Ha 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 ha, better luck next time, gentlemen. Oh hey, it's like a guy who can fly. Ah ha ha ha, excuse me, but I'm afraid I must be leaving now. But he can actually fly, somehow. Shall meet again, when the moon is full! Ha 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 ha. Ah ha 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 ha. So I'm gonna stop there. That was fun. But I think I'm gonna end stream now, since I do have to get up earlier than normal. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next stream. Bye.